In this brief slideshow, we are going to address the spatial nature of sound in rooms. The model that we are going to use is called the image model. This is just a drawing of the speakers and their early reflections as additional sources on the other side of the walls, like mirror images. Two stereo speakers would have 6 main reflections, as shown here. 2 noteworthy reflections are the first sidewall reflections and the corner secondaries. The strengths and the positions of the reflections depend on the positions of the speakers themselves and the radiation patterns. Most discussions that you will see about directivity are about the dispersion of the frontal output of box speakers. They can have narrow or wide directivity or even omnidirectional. They talk about constant directivity as one good goal, such that the frequency response is constant in all directions of the radiation pattern, leading to a good power response in the room. What doesn't occur to them is the direct-to-reflected ratio of the radiation pattern. It is simply assumed that all we want to hear is the direct sound from the front of the speakers. Looking at the full model, it's easier to see that in order to make the front wall reflections equal to the actual speakers, we would need at least 6 dB greater output to the rear than to the front. When we do this, we get a harmless image shift toward the reflecting surfaces that causes the instrumental images to come from a plane behind the plane of the speakers and from wall to wall rather than just speaker to speaker. The sound comes from points in space rather than a line strung between the speakers and has greater depth and spaciousness. Here is the sound stage of direct firing only speakers, all forward and between the speakers. Here is the sound stage of direct and reflected output of the main speakers. The model also shows clearly the effect of speaker positioning on the images within the sound stage. Speakers positioned too wide results in a hole in the middle and stretched soloists. Positioned too close to the corners results in a clustering of images in 2 halves of the room. Thinking in terms of radiation pattern, we might ask ourselves which pattern or patterns might we want in order to better mimic the sound of live music in a larger space. We check Mark Davis's work with the DBX Sound Field 1, in which he uses time intensity trading to stabilize the center image for all seats. This results in a frontal radiation with lobes toward the opposite speaker. If we want all image sources in the model to be even in intensity, we might want a rear pattern that is greater than the frontal output and greater toward the front corners because of their distance from us. But it may be impossible to predict the exact pattern for all rooms, so we might want to make a speaker with gain pots or L pads on all 4 faces of the speaker to shape the radiation pattern to the room. A design based on the image model and radiation pattern of the speakers might be called an image model projector to raise awareness of just what is happening acoustically in the room. So, if we finally get the speaker design and positioning and adjustments right, we still need to adjust the acoustics of the room to help construct the sound fields to match the concert hall better. Some absorption is justified to suck the reverb time down to under a half a second using normal furnishings and carpeting, plus some wall treatment. The first sidewall reflection should be absorbed to keep the center image stabilized as we go off-center in the seating. Some diffusion is justified to diminish the signature of the size and shape of the actual room. Dipoles and open baffle are an interesting case for delivering a good radiation pattern if placed and aimed properly for image modeling. Modern receivers are great for making all of the necessary adjustments for speaker distance, frequency response, gains, and crossover points between the sats and the subs. Do it all right and your stereo image will look something like this, and your surround frontal image will look like this. Thanks.